Hi, hello everyone. I am super excited because this is going to be my first ever YouTube video that is more like a podcast, which means it's just going to be me talking the entire time. I'm super excited to try out this format because ultimately I do want to become a podcaster, but I haven't really made anything that's like a podcast before. Now, I listen to podcasts pretty much all of the time, and I have for years. So I'm just super excited to kind of give it a stab for myself. So here we go. Let's do this. So I'll introduce myself briefly. So I am Judith Hope. I'm a Galactic Akashics Records practitioner. And so I really help a lot of people understand, where they were in their past lives, what star system, where their soul came from, like what the energy of their soul feels like, and what they're meant to do in this lifetime, right? Because when we come to Earth to become a human, it's a big commitment, right? So sometimes we don't always understand why and what we're supposed to be doing here. And I think that's maybe the biggest, most pivotal questions most people have about their lives. And so what I really do is help people understand, why did their soul want to be here, and what did they come here to do? And a lot of the times you're already doing it, right? So a lot of times when people come to me for readings, they're already doing what their soul came here to do, and they didn't even know it. So it's always really like a happy and comforting and uplifting thing when I do those types of readings with folks. So if you are interested in getting one of those, I do have my link below if you want to work with me one-on-one and find out about your soul origin and your life purpose. So that link is below. But right now, I currently am recording from Joshua Tree, California. I drove here yesterday from LA. I've been in LA for about 5 months now. So it's 2025, and I came to LA on June 1st of 2025, and then I left October 31st, Halloween, and I'm on to my next adventure. And I forgot, but please like and subscribe this video as well. Um, and so I was in LA for 5 months, but I'm gonna back up even further than that and talk about how I even got there, right? So I actually was living in Austin, Texas for 3 years. I lived there from 2021 to 2024. I had a corporate job. So my background is in accounting. That's what my degrees are in. I'm a CPA, and I am kind of an auditor by trade. At least in that, when I do that type of work, I'm an auditor, and not a tax person. And so I was working there in a corporate job. I had a really good job actually at a tech company, and I had gotten a promotion, and all that kind of good stuff. And so I was working there, but then I decided that I wanted to quit my job and travel around, become nomadic, and start my own company. And so I quit in the summer of 2024, and then I left Austin in September of 2024. So I was kind of traveling around for the rest of 2024. The first place I went to was Kansas City, Kansas, because it's Kansas City, Missouri, and Kansas City, Kansas, and it's kind of split. But for me, I actually stayed on the Kansas side. That's where my Airbnb was. So I was there for a couple weeks, and it was a good first trip, but it also really taught me how frustrating like trying to travel and remote work can be. And there was just a lot of hiccups with that trip, but it taught me a lot. And then I ended up actually traveling back to Texas in October and going to a music festival there. I also bought my car because my car had been leased. And so I went ahead and just bought it because I knew I wanted it. Like, I knew it was my car. Like, I definitely have a soul contract with that car. It's my dream car. And I wanted that car since I was like 16. So I was just like, no, there's no way I'm going to buy a different car. Like, I'm just going to go ahead and buy it. So I did that. And then after that, last November, so about a year from now, I actually drove up to the East Coast. And my first destination that I went to was Philadelphia, but I ended up going to Philadelphia, Boston, Salem, New York City, and then I did like all the big cities. And like the crazy thing about the East Coast is that like there's so many cool big cities right by each other, all within like a few hours away. So it's like you're just hitting like thing after thing after thing. So it was super cool. But then I ended up coming back to, I did Thanksgiving in Arkansas where my brother and his family live. So I ended up driving back to Arkansas from New York City. It took me like 4 days or something like that. And then I actually spent time at my parents' house for, I think, like December of last year. Then January, I was in New Mexico and Arizona. And then I went to Los Angeles. And it was in Los Angeles that I actually figured, like, hey, like, I actually think I want to move there. And at that time, I was thinking, like, long term, like, I'm going to, like, recommit to, like, living in Los Angeles. Um, so that was kind of my plan at that time. And I was there for the Super Conscious Life Expo. It's a really great conference. If you guys have never been, I saw like some really cool people that I like. I listen to their content regularly, like Elizabeth April, Debbie Soloris, like all of these, people who are pretty big, I guess, in the spiritual industry. So I went there and then I decided like, hey, like I'm gonna move to LA. But I kind of intuitively felt like not right away. Um, and so I spent a few months, like basically all of spring 2025, with my parents at their house in Texas. And it was good that I did because there was a lot of really big, like inner child healing that needed to happen. I could probably do an entire episode on that. So I'm not going to talk about that too much today, other than to say it was like those really big things from my childhood that were really affecting me my entire life. I was able to work through those and heal through those when I was at home with my parents. So, um, I think not having a full-time job and staying with my parents for about 3 months gave me the opportunity to heal that stuff, which I'm lucky to have had the chance to do that because most people are not in positions where they can just not really have a job and be able to afford to do that and just, stay with family and just figure that stuff out. And so I was really fortunate to be able to do that. And it was a really big deal that I did that. So I did that. And then in May, I left. I went and stayed with my sister in Louisiana for a couple weeks, hung out with her. And then I actually ended up going to Florida, to Jacksonville, Florida. And that had been like a hit that I should check that out. Like when I was leaving my company, I was still like initially thinking about applying for other jobs. And then I did decide like, hey, no, I'm going to start a business full time. And I had been applying for jobs and was applying for this job in Jacksonville, Florida. And there was something about Jacksonville that I felt like I needed to go. So I ended up going like the following year in May in 2025 this year. I was in Jacksonville for a couple of weeks or maybe less. And it was really cool. Like Jacksonville is like, it's like a big city, but it has like a small town feel. And out of all the places that I visited, I would have to say that Jacksonville probably was like the easiest to like meet people to hang out with. Like I went on a date, like I was going to hang out with this girl like as friends too. So the date was with a dude. Um I ended up being interested, but I did go out with him and then I was gonna like hang out with this girl like as friends. Um, but then she ended up canceling on me. But still like I still like met a lot of people and had like social interactions more so than basically like any other place that I went to, which I was not expecting. And there's also a really cool, like it was like a spiritual church there. It was not religious, not Christianity or any other religion, a spiritual, like metaphysical church. And I ended up going to a bunch of their events and like really liking the people there, taking like psychic development classes there, going to their psychic fair. And it was a really special experience. So I love Jacksonville. Then I ended up going to Orlando for like 4 days, really only to go to Disney World. I wanted to see Galaxy's Edge because I grew up a huge Star Wars fan. Like everyone in my family loves Star Wars, especially my dad. And so I had to go and like see the park and like it did not disappoint at all. And I actually made a ton of content for Disney. That's where I kind of became a Disney adult there for a hot second. And I related to spirituality and I put it all on my Instagram and perhaps my TikTok as well. I can't remember. I was using TikTok for a while, posting content, but then my Instagram started getting kind of more energy, more attention. So I kind of focused there. That's my current focus. So anyway, I secured while I was in Jacksonville. a summer lease in Los Angeles. So I was like, hey, like I want to check out Los Angeles for the summer, see if it's where I want to live full time. Even though like I had initially been like that's going to be my full-time move, I think I was still considering like, hey, like I might actually move to Los Angeles and like live there for long term. Um, but I was still kind of like, let me just get a lease for the summer. So I found someone who just rents out rooms in their apartment. A really beautiful neighborhood. If you've been to LA, it's Silver Lake, Hollywood Hills. And definitely had a porch in the backyard where I could see the Hollywood sign and just absolutely beautiful view. Absolutely amazing. So I got a lease for 3 months there and I headed back to Texas basically. So I was in Orlando. I drove back to Texas. I got all my stuff from my parents' house because I was basically using their house as a storage unit since I moved out of Austin the previous year. And then I drove to Los Angeles. And yeah, and so that's how I ended up on Los Angeles, on June 1st. And so I went into LA like being like, okay, like I kind of knew, I guess, like because I was on two different timelines, I think, because a part of me was like, hey, like I'm gonna find like, a part-time job and I'm gonna keep building out my business, my Akashic Records business, but then part of me was like, well, maybe I need to get a full-time corporate job and I can just do it, my business on the side. And then, there really wasn't a part of me that felt like I could just continue doing it full time because I was like, I need to start bringing in, more revenue. And selling readings is, it's a lot to just it's a high ticket, it's a high ticket product, so the price point is high. So it's like you really have to kind of sell, put a lot of effort into, selling. And even when you put in the effort, sometimes like you don't always get the sell, right? It's not like I can just like make something and it's cheap, like stickers or something that are like $2 and sell, a bunch of them. It's like, it's just like, it feels like a little bit maybe more, I don't want to say harder. I don't know if harder is the right word, but it's like, you have to constantly be making, sales. It's not steady, right? And so I think it was like I was so all over the place and like kind of decision paralysis. I couldn't really decide, what to do. But I got to LA and I was like, okay, maybe I'll like find a part-time job working at like a yoga studio or a spiritual center. And so I spent my first couple months in LA like really going to a lot of different like meetups, spiritual meetups mainly, yoga classes, some business networking as well. And I met a lot of interesting people. I met a lot of potential clients. Um, and I did like quite a bit of networking, but it just didn't really feel like it was the right place for me. Nothing really took off. I definitely had hesitancy to just go and introduce myself as a Galactic Akashic Records practitioner. I was very comfortable doing that online in the virtual space. Because a lot of my last corporate job I had, where I had really kind of moved up into more of like a mid-level leader, not it ended my career there as a senior manager, so not a director, right? But like, I had really come into that more leader role like virtually because it was after COVID. So before COVID, when I was more of like a senior associate, before I was a manager, I was in person. So I was comfortable playing that role in person, but I was really comfortable more being like a leader online in the virtual environment. And so when I got to LA, it was just like I didn't feel super like comfortable always like introducing myself as a Galactic Akashic Records practitioner. I wasn't embodying that. I think it was still holding on to my CPA career, right? My auditor career. Because I loved that job and it was a big part of me and I really had defined myself as an auditor. And I think there's a part of me that still loves that. Like I love like learning regulation and learning how controls and regulation are put in place, right? And how we operate them and how they keep risks from happening and getting to the bottom of things, right? Like that's a big part of being an auditor too, is like what's really happening here? What does the contract really say? Like what's the timeline of things that really happened? Like I love that type of work. Um but I was really struggling because I wasn't picking a timeline. I was still like, well, maybe I'll go back and get a full-time job, or maybe I'll work at a yoga studio part-time, or maybe if I just go introduce myself, to people, or I just meet the right person, I'll get hired part-time somewhere to, do readings or something. Like it was all over the place because I couldn't pick what I wanted. And I think it was like mid-July, I was really like, okay, I need to start applying for jobs here. Um, because I was going to all these like spiritual meetups and events, and I wasn't really making connections that I felt could lead to employment. I was making a lot of potential client connections, but even like, I mean, I would have great conversations with people and they just weren't, they tell me they want to book a reading and then I give them all my info and they just weren't booking. And so I was kind of like, well, like maybe I should go back and do, my corporate stuff for a while. And I was hanging on between these timelines, and finally one day, and I'm trying to think it will remember what it was. I knew I needed to choose. I knew I needed to choose what I wanted to do. But I think there was a day where I was like, no, I need to stop. This is not what I need to. If I go back into doing a corporate job, it's going to take all of my energy, right? Like I'm not someone who can't get engrossed in the energy of the corporate like world. And I think that's part of like the part of me that like being an auditor is like I want to see things be done correctly and go well. And let me tell you, like if you're an auditor and you're seeing what's happening, a lot of the times it's the opposite of that in the corporate world, right? Things are all over the place, right? And so I eventually decided like I'm gonna stop applying for jobs and I'm going to focus on becoming an Akashic reader full time. And it was difficult because I knew in order to do that, I'd have to pull into savings that I didn't want to pull into. Like I had wanted to start, like some of my savings, I was comfortable with spending those, but there were some of my savings that I felt were off limit. Um, like I said, I have a CPA. Like it's just like it's the opposite of the financial advice that a CPA would normally give to like pull into your retirement accounts and different long-term savings accounts and pull money out of there, right? But once I decided to do that, I was like, look, like I've got to focus on this full time. Like the universe has given me enough money to do that while I keep going, because I was seeing my content on Instagram, get better and better. I was seeing me start to build out YouTube content. I was seeing me, be able to speak in front of a group about spiritual topics. And, some of these meetups I was going in, I was just a participant, but I was speaking and people were really listening to me. And I was really giving them a lot of like new insight or hope or things like that. Like I could see it in their face. I was able to like, start, like I was saying, I was meeting people, really introducing myself and feeling like I was stepping into more like, hey, like I'm going to be able to really like, sell at a larger level. Because for me, like the sales skills were always the hardest part for me. And so I was like, hey, like I'm finally going to be on this right track. So I was like, I've got to do this 100%. And as soon as I made that decision, like I'm going to focus on this 100% and I'm just going to have to withdraw from my savings accounts, I felt so much peace. I felt so much peace, and I stopped feeling like I was in decision paralysis and like, what should I do? Like, I just felt peace. And so I knew it was the right decision. And pretty much, I think pretty close to after that, I was like, okay, like LA is not the place for me. Um, I had a lot of opportunity to make a lot of friends in LA, but I was like, I don't want to hang out with someone unless I really feel called to hang out with them. And like every opportunity situation I got where I was like, oh, I could probably go hang out with that person and like make a friendship, I just was kind of like, yeah, like, I don't know, like, I don't know if I really felt it. And so I just felt like I hadn't really, made any professional connections or personal connections. I did some dating, and there was one person that I was really interested in that I dated while I was in LA, but I just knew we weren't compatible. I was just more interested in like the physical connection with them, and so I had to break it off. And so I knew that it didn't feel like anything there in any part of my life was panning out. And it made me so happy to think about leaving LA. And so I decided in the middle of the summer, I got a hit once I decided to leave. Like, you need to stay until the end of October and then put all your stuff in a storage unit and you're going to go somewhere. So once I knew that, I felt peace. I talked to my roommate, who was also like my landlord. She said I could stay until the end of October. It was perfect. And yeah, and so I want to backtrack a little bit too, because before I left for LA, I had a dream, and I don't know if you guys, I get these, like, I haven't gotten them in a couple months, but sometimes I'll get a bunch of them in a row. But like with the lucid dreaming where you're astral traveling, right? It's like you really remember and feel like you're there. I whenever like my higher self or my spirit guides or whoever it is needs to communicate something important to me, I'll wake up in the middle of the night at like 4 or 5, and this isn't uncommon for me to wake up at that time, but I'll wake up at that time and I won't be able to go back to sleep. And I'll kind of know, like, hey, like I'm going to go into the lucid dreaming state. I'm going to astral travel somewhere. A lot of times, like my past lives that need to be healed get unlocked. I'll literally go into the past life or the Akashic records in my dream state and experience it because it's coming up to be healed. But right before I left for Los Angeles, probably within a few days of leaving, I had one of these lucid dreams, and I go in and I'm like, I think I was traveling through space, and I get to this giant map of the United States. It looks like some kind of like cartoon or something you would see on TV. And there's this like announcery voice saying, next, you are going to leave and go to Los Angeles. And then after Los Angeles, you will leave and you'll go to Seattle. But then after Seattle, you can literally go anywhere in the entire world. And it was like this, like, and then I feel like the map like lit up with like stars, or, like, I don't know, I think some kind of like 4th of July explosion type of thing. And so I woke up and I was like, okay, so I'm contracted to go to Los Angeles. I'm contracted to go to Seattle. But then after that, I can choose anywhere that I want to go. And so I was like, okay, like I need to, I have these contracts and I need to go, right? Because if it was just up to my human, I probably would move back to Chicago. Like I lived in Chicago for almost 7 years, and I think I moved there a month before I turned 25, and I left when maybe I was like 31, something like that. So basically like my mid to late 20s, like, 30, 31, I lived there and I loved it. I love being in big cities like that. I love the environment, the energy. There's just something about it that I really, really love. So my human was like, why don't I just move back to Chicago? Like, I love the energy there. I love the city. Or like New York is really calling to me. Like, I've never lived in New York City. Like, I would love to live in like even like New Jersey and then just take the train into New York. And I think that's why that dream came through so strongly, that I needed to go to Seattle, because I think I just have a contract to be there, and there's just like connections I need to make and things I need to do there. Because even though I wasn't in LA for that long, a lot of important things happened. I think I did a lot of work around like my heart and like the things that have kind of blocked me from finding like love, like romantic love in the past, related to the person I mentioned before that I dated. But then also just like shifting my energy, because I feel like I had been in the energy of like, well, I don't really need anyone. I'm okay being single. Like, it's fine if I never meet anyone because I have this like life that I love. You know, like I think that I've been in that energy for so long, I had to shift into like, no, I actually want a partner and I want to pull that partner into my life and into my field. So I did a lot of work around that. In LA, I went to like a lot of different like dating events. I got on a dating app. I ended up, meeting someone and having to work through stuff with him. I also, which was interesting because I am bi, and so I actually decided when I was in Los Angeles and just realized like I do feel the next partner coming through is male. I've been more, I think, in Austin, dating women, and I just realized like the type of role I want to play in a relationship is more like I want to be like more of the feminine person in the relationship. Like I don't really want to be the masculine person. Like when I'm hanging out with my friends and I have to like, and it's all like women like, and you have to, I don't like playing the more masculine role. Like I like playing the female role and like, and sometimes you have to, right? When it's all girls, like we can't all be the princess. Like when it's all girls hanging out, some of us have to do the stuff that like, the guy would do or whatever. And I was like, I don't want that. Like I want to be like the female. I'm gonna have the guy do all the stuff in the relationship, right? And so I think that's me realizing like that, I think is what, made me realize like, hey, like I actually want to start dating men, again, which because I just really hadn't been dating men. And I'll preface that by saying, like, I've always been someone who's like very focused on like women's rights and things like that. And I'm not saying that I want to, be like a stay-at-home like wife and not have a career, not, work and all that kind of stuff. My goodness, no. Like I definitely, feel called in my career that I'm here to do this. And I don't think I would be happy just like being a stay at home wife or a stay at home mom. But I do think that I want to play more of the female role within the partnership, but one that's like, okay, you can play the female role and be like supportive towards, your husband, but you also like that doesn't mean you have to do all the cooking and cleaning and can't work. Like you can still play that role, but you can still split responsibilities like between the two people, right? So I just want to preface and say that, but I think it's a really big realization I had in Los Angeles. I also, my roommate that I lived with had a cat, and I had a very special bond with him, and I think it opened up my heart a lot because I was never a pet person before, and I didn't understand how people could like love pets and have such this bond with them, but I really understood it meeting him. I think he was a member of my soul family because I have a big connection to Lyra, which is the cat humanoid planet. And yeah, I felt like he did too. So there was just a lot that happened to me, while I was in Los Angeles. Some other stuff too, but I think it was important for me to go there for a number of reasons. I just grew a lot while I was there, and I'm coming out, I feel like, being a lot more comfortable in kind of owning my role as an Akashic Records practitioner, and being more comfortable talking about it. It's also weird because I expected Los Angeles to be like this super spiritual place. Like I thought, because I know like Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of like dark energy in Los Angeles and a lot of superficial energy there too. But I thought that I would find like the spiritual amongst that. And I really found that I did meet some spiritual people there for sure, but I didn't find that, me talking about that kind of stuff in a setting that wasn't, particularly where people were open to talking about it, it didn't feel well received always. So it just didn't work out, I guess. Like it didn't feel like the right place for me. But I did feel like it was important for me to go there because of how much transformation I had there on so many different levels. So, with that being said, I want to talk a little bit about how soul contracts work. And I've kind of about them within the context of locations, right? And so there are soul contracts for locations, but there's soul contracts for a lot of things, right? So let me just start with your soul prior to even becoming human. When you decide you want to become a human is where you kind of like start building out the plan of, okay, this is what my human life is going to look like, right? So you pick everything from like your parents, your gender, your race, what you're going to look like. Are you going to be athletic? Are you going to be good at singing? Are you going to be tall? Are you going to be short? Are you going to struggle with addiction? Are you going to have an addiction gene because you need to learn lessons about addiction, or you want to learn how to overcome addiction in this lifetime? Are you going to struggle with your weight and be a person who has to learn how to manage their relationship with food, and it doesn't come naturally, to you? in this lifetime? Are you going to be someone who's super attractive and has people, throwing themselves at you, and you have to learn kind of how to work with that and deal with that in this lifetime? Like, there's just so many different experiences that a soul can choose when kind of building out a human. It's very similar to like if you're playing a video game and you're building out a character. It's like it's the same thing. It's building out a human. And so you make these contracts. You make contracts with your parents. You can make contracts with your siblings. I don't know that you make them 100% of the time, because like, especially the older sibling, when I feel into it, I feel like you do a lot of the time. But I know that sometimes new siblings can come in, right? But I do feel like there would be some kind of contact if like a new younger sibling came in with the older sibling's soul as well. And there'd probably be some kind of like contact and communication and agreement made there too. But you make agreements where you're going to live, who your best friends are going to be, your romantic partners. Are they going to be relationships? How long are these relationships going to be? Are they going to be marriages? Are you going to have one marriage your entire life? Are you going to have multiple marriages? Are you never going to get married and just have lovers? You choose if you're going to be straight or gay or bisexual or pansexual or transgender. Like, you can make contracts to do those things. And I don't want to say that like everything is contracted down to the detail. I think there's some wiggle room, and also contracts can also be broken when you get to Earth, but there are some things that are contracted in. So your soul spends a lot of time, planning this life experience you're going to have, right? Also, jobs and bosses also can be contracted. And so like with location in particular, I think it's so interesting because I feel like my entire life, like I've had these soul contracts about what location you're going to go to. And even when I haven't wanted to move somewhere, I've known I need to go there, like at the soul level. And I'm talking about even before I was spiritually awakened, like even when I was religious, I grew up in the Christian church, religious family, still all in the church. And even then I would like know where I'm supposed to be, right? I knew, like, I felt strongly I was supposed to move to Chicago. And then when I left Chicago to move to Austin, my human did not want to go back to Austin. That's where I went to college. I was like, I don't want to move there. Been there, done that. But I felt so strongly that I had to go, even though I didn't want to, that I went. And so it's interesting for me, like I've had these strong location soul contracts my entire life. And so kind of going into this period where I know, like, okay, the next couple years I'm contracted to be in Seattle, do a lot of work in Washington state. But after that, I can literally go anywhere, and hopefully I'll have a partner by then, since I am actively trying to manifest and pull a long-term partner, a life partner into my field. We together can decide where we want to go, right? And so it's just crazy to me, and it kind of scares me a little bit because I'm not used to just being able to decide, right? And we always have free will. So, like if I had decided, okay, I'm not going to leave Austin, or I'm not going to leave Chicago and go to Austin, or I'm not going to go to LA, like I would keep getting pushed to go to any of these cities at any point in the timeline, right? Like things would either go so awry for me in the city that I was living in. Like, for example, when I left Chicago to go to Austin, I had 2 job offers, one in Chicago and one in Austin. I think my offer in Austin, the salary was like, the salary in Chicago that I was going to get was 2/3 of the salary that I was going to get in Austin. I was living in Chicago and I lived in the city, and I had been taking the train to my previous job. I would have to buy a car, have a lower salary, and the company was hiring me because I guess the role was still open, even though, like, if any of you guys are familiar with like the audit world, SOX, SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley, is this regulation that was put into place after Enron fell, and U.S. companies have to comply with it. But this was a company that was a United States company, but had been bought by a company in, like, I think it was Sweden. I don't remember exactly, but they were not going to have to be compliant with SOX. And so I was like, if I go and take this job, like, I'm going to getting paid way less. I'm going to have to buy a car at kind of a lower salary. And I'm probably going to get laid off from this job because it's like, why? And they had this like, oh, once we're not SOX compliant, we're going to transition you to this other role. But I was just like, I don't know. I just feel like that's going to be, and the role's going to get eliminated. Nothing, no matter if I do great or terrible or whatever I do, like it wouldn't matter. So it kind of made it like difficult for me to stay in Chicago. When I had this job offer that was at this tech company, it was this like very large salary, like amazing benefits, right? Unlimited PTO, all of this like stock, right? All these stock options, like, and then it was like kind of a prestigious company. Like it wasn't like a top tier company that was like Google or Microsoft or something like that, but it was talked about in like the news and stuff. Like it kind of like it was up and coming, like a big player reputation wise. And so, that kind of has an appeal to it. And then it's like, they had like nice offices and like, you get to go in and do all this cool stuff in the office. And like, it just was very appealing. So it just like, the universe kind of set it up where it's like, okay, like I can stay in Chicago. My human wants to be here, but, I'm not going to be off that well financially. And, there's a chance like this job that I would have, I would get laid off and I might be back in the same position where I'm trying to find another job in Chicago or having to move, And so I just was like, no, like, and I really, really intuitively felt I needed to leave. And I forgot about this till just now, but I actually got a message that I need to leave. This was in the fall of like 2020. Yeah, I think so. And it was like 3 days before I got laid off from my job that I had in Chicago. But I had gone over to Wisconsin, driven over there with a couple of friends to go apple picking. So growing up in Texas, we don't really have apple orchards where you get to do that in the fall. But we drove over to Wisconsin. We did that. It was fun. And then we went to the Cheese Castle, which is like this giant like store that sells all the different kind of cheeses. That looks like a castle in front, like as a storefront of a castle, but they sell like cheeses. What else do they sell? Like all kinds of like beer and wine and like different like desserts and breads and all the whole gamut of like different goods. And so I went there and one of my friends was like, oh, I don't have to buy this right now because, we were looking at stuff and she was like trying to decide what she wanted to buy because like it was a cool store. Like there was a lot of different like fun products to try out. And she was like, we can just come back here anytime because it's like an hour away. We live in Chicago. And I just got this voice in my head. It was like, not you because you're leaving Chicago soon. And I just remember being like, I knew it. I knew I was going to leave and I shouldn't be there anymore, right? And so the universe kind of made it abundantly clear to me, like my contract with Chicago was up and I needed to move on. And so I did. I took the job, in Austin, and then that's where I ended up having a spiritual awakening. I left religion. I guess I left it behind. Like it was a process for me to leave it behind. It started when I was living in Chicago, like the last year or so. And then I think I officially left when I got to Austin in 2021. And it just was like, man, it was like, okay, like if you're not following the church's rules anymore, it's like, okay, now you can learn about crystals and tarot and witchcraft. And like, it just was an exciting time, right? Because it's like, oh, like I can go and learn about these things and make my own judgment if I want to, be involved with them. What do I think they're bad? Do I think they're good? Do I think they're neutral? Like, what do I think about them? Like, I don't have to just say like, no, those things are bad and I don't do them because, I'm a Christian and Christians don't do that. And, it was just very freeing, right? It was just very freeing. And so that's where my spiritual awakening started. And I ended up staying in Austin for like 3 years, totally transformed, totally different person leaving Austin than I was when I moved there. And I don't know what my spiritual awakening would have been like in Chicago. I just think Austin's a mecca for spiritual stuff. Like so many spiritual centers and practitioners and events to go through. Like I literally could try any healing modality. that I wanted to, because there was a practitioner in Austin, Texas that could do it, right? It's like I saw on Gaia TV like tuning forks. I want to go get a tuning fork session. Like I can go find someone who does tuning forks, right? Like I'm going to go to a sound bath every single week because there's a million different sound baths by a million different practitioners at different places. I could do it, right? So it ended up being a really cool place to spiritually awaken. And I mean, Chicago's a huge city. There's a ton of spiritual practitioners there, a ton of events. Like I'm sure I could have done it there too, but I also had soul contracts with particular people in Austin too, right? That I needed to get there, whether it was to work together, as business partners, mentors, friendship, dating, whatever it was. I had contracts that I needed to go there. So yeah, so that's a little bit about location contracts, my experience with them. I could go so much into, like, I think the biggest one people always want to know about is like relationship contracts, like for romantic partners, whether that's boyfriend, girlfriend, dating, marriage, divorce. That's the big one. So I'm not gonna go into that today, but I definitely feel like probably could do a whole episode about that as well. But yeah, and I think too, the last thing I'll say about the location contracts is that I don't think my full-time romantic partner, like, I'll say the word husband, like I used to cringe at that word, and it's the way it's used because everyone's like, you gotta find your husband, like all this stuff. Like I just was like, no, I'm an independent woman, but like now I've gotten a lot more comfortable with like the thought of being able to be in a marriage, like, and have a husband. But I don't think that he was ever going to be in Austin, right? And so it's like I kind of had to leave Austin if I wanted to find someone. Um, and I think sometimes we have to do that a lot of the time. It's actually a big thing you hear people talking about quite a bit when they're telling their own stories, or when they talk like advising clients and things like that, that sometimes you do have to get up and leave to find your romantic partner. So I think that was part of it too. So yeah, so that's a lot about soul contracts, my journey. I left LA yesterday. I've been in Joshua Tree basically since yesterday. It has been fun. I'm not going to get to stay here very long or do a ton, but I've just done a few things. I do think I'll come back to Joshua Tree. I want to explore more. I actually am still recovering from kind of like I pulled my back. It's not really like an injury. Well, I guess it's an injury. I pulled it so bad that I was struggling to like walk and get in and out of the car. Um, and that was like a week and a half ago. And like now I'm where I can like basically like walk around and stuff. But I still have to be a little careful. So I'm in Joshua Tree and I'm not going to be able to do, the big hikes and stuff like that. So I definitely want to come back here where I'm like not trying to recover from an injury. I can go and do hikes and stuff, but there's still been plenty of cool things to do. I've like explored a lot of art in the desert. I went to eat lunch today. I'm going to go to dinner at a cool restaurant tonight. Checked out some of the cute little shops and stuff like that. So this was kind of the first episode of my first series here. And I'm going to talk about kind of my journey from Los Angeles to Seattle. So this is just kind of the setup today. But yeah, and I just realized I should probably put that at the beginning of the episode. But like I said, like this is my first one. I'm still learning. So if you're still listening, thank you for sticking with me to this. But I'm basically during this series going to be okay. I left Los Angeles. I'm going to be in the desert for November, going home to Texas for Thanksgiving. Then I got to make my way back to Los Angeles, get all of my belongings I left in a storage unit there, and then I'm going to go up to Seattle. So this kind of podcast series is going to be all about my journey from Los Angeles to Seattle and all the adventures that I get in. So that's it for episode 1. Thank you so much for listening. I do have a couple freebies linked below, a third eye activation meditation. So if you want to start working on your own intuitive abilities, I think it's a great place to start, completely free. And then also, I'm a huge sticker lover, so I made some starseed sticker printables. Basically, any type of alien you could be, I have a sticker sheet. So if you're interested in those are completely free, and the link to download those is below. All right, so thank you so much for listening, and yeah, I'll check in next time to kind of tell you what's next in my adventure. All right, bye everyone.